Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. While scanning the internet for relevant subject matter, I came across an article written in 2017. 9 Klingon episodes to watch on Netflix before Star Trek Discovery. Now, I don't blame you, Gavia, Baker, Whitelaw, for writing this, unless you were put up to it. Because how could you know? How could you know what Star Trek Discovery would do to the Klingon Empire? Now let's lay down a few ground rules, okay? Star Trek Discovery takes place in the J.J. Abrams universe. So Spock doing his time travel maneuver kind of makes this whole place null and void. So there's some culpable deniability. The thing that I, and many people like me, greatly are harmed by is the implication that this show is a direct predecessor to the original series and fills in missing juicy gaps of information that make the original series what it is. And to that tune, we come across this article which touts the 9 best episodes of Star Trek from canon, from the universe that matters, that's not this hunk of shit, that informs us of what the Klingons are, what they're about, what their beliefs are, their culture, their heritage. And here's the rub of it for me. I can't disagree with the episodes that the article cites. We'll run down them one by one. That's not the problem. The problem is that they are propping these episodes up in an attempt to boost the ratings of a substandard series that's touted as Star Trek, but is not Star Trek. I've been watching Star Trek for 35 years. STD ain't Star Trek. We'll get to that. Let's run down the list, shall we? First episode on the list, Errand of Mercy. Fucking excellent Star Trek. It distills in one episode the essence of what Star Trek is. You have the totalitarian Klingon Empire. You have Kirk the idealist, and Spock willing to lay their lives down for a primitive society who they believe is under a brutal regime, even going so far as to conducting terrorist acts. But what they don't realize is that the people that they're terrorizing don't need their help. Excellent Star Trek. Second on the list, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. Now, this was made in the twilight of Gene Roddenberry's years. And it was probably the last direct production that he had creative input on. And it was magnificent. It was directed by the same director who did The Wrath of Khan. But it tells the tale of the Klingon Empire is at threat from the forces of nature. One of their moons has broken up and their home planet is fucked unless they reached out to the Federation, which they do, but then somebody murders a higher up and they blame it on the crew of the Enterprise. So on the eve of peace, there's this act of sabotage. And who it turns out to be is very interesting. And who that person is biologically ends up being very interesting. Extremely good Star Trek. Next on the list is Heart of Glory. It's not one of my favorite TNG episodes. I am firmly of the belief that the longer that Worf's hair got, the cooler he got. This is when his hair was like up here. And this is the first time you see like the warriors cry when a slain body is done. And they're warning Sto-vo-kor that there's a warrior coming. This episode is okay just because of the references to Klingon culture, but it's not very well executed. And watch it and make your own determination. Okay, now we're getting into the good shit. Sins of the Father. Excellent episode. When I want to go on a Klingon binge, this is one of the episodes. Like, I start with Sins of the Father. I go to the Kalar episodes, and then I go into the Gowron episodes, and I just sit back like this is my version of taking a bath with candles on, and because I'm a dork. Sins of the Father concerns the politics between two great Klingon houses, and it has to do directly with Worf's origin and the fate of his father. They try to pin crimes committed against the Klingon Empire against Worf's father, and the law of Klingon culture is that the son is culpable for the sins of his father. So the only person alive to answer for those sins is the elder son. And Worf decides to challenge it. And the results of that episode actually reverberate through the rest of Star Trek. Good Star Trek. The next two episodes are lumped together, the Emissary and Reunion. And this concerns perhaps Worf's true love, Kalar. They actually had a child together. His name was Alexander. His fate is shaky, as we discover. But just like Worf had to find his way, Alexander has to find his way. But Kalar, aside from being insanely hot, Susie Plaxton, is a stand-up woman. She's a great example of what a woman should be. Strong female, not touted around as a strong female. Her presence announces her. This episode also marks one of the times where we get to see past the gruff exterior of Worf, and we see him admitting that he can love and that he can be with somebody and be tender. There's been other instances of that, like when he's reading poetry or where he's whatever. But this is the time where we see him interacting with somebody. And it's funny because a good woman will drive you crazy, but she will create the bloodlust inside you that makes you just want to like grab her and take her. Maybe that's why they get on her nerves. The next episode is a Deep Space Nine episode, The Way of the Warrior. In Deep Space Nine lore, the Klingons and the I almost called them Kardashians. I really wish the Klingon Empire would attack the Kardashians. That would really make me smile. The Klingon Empire and the Cardassians come at odds, and then Worf gets caught in between because he's a Federation officer. So it's like, what's it going to be? It's us or them. And Worf goes, I have my duty. And they're like, okay, fuck you. And chaos ensues. The Sword of Kahless. Again, a Deep Space Nine episode. Okay. Kahless is the Jesus of the Klingons. Okay. He transformed their society, taught them their morals, their values, made the cultural mortar that their fucking church stands on. Okay. In this episode, we're also given 3 TOS era Klingons who their looks are updated. Obviously, if you give a shit about the Enterprise continuity, have been cured of the augment virus. Either that or their bodies naturally healed over 200 years. Shows us that Klingons have very long lifespans, or at least comparatively speaking to humans. They go through trials and tribulations because they're trying to find the original Batleth, the one that came off the lock of hair that was dipped into the fucking volcano and turned out as whatever. And shit happens. Check it out. Next episode on the list is a Barge of the Dead, a Voyager episode. B'Elanna Torres is half Klingon. She has a vision of her mother in the afterlife. And it's alright. I don't like it as much as the episode where she was actually split in half and like she had a human B'Elanna and there was a fully Klingon B'Elanna, and they actually fought each other and had to work together in order to solve the situation in the show. So yeah. Last on this author's list is Once More Into the Breach, a Deep Space Nine episode. And this concerns the wishes of Commander Kor from the original series. I can't go too much into that because it would spoil the episode too much. And by and large, that's a pretty good list. There's a couple things I would tweak about that, but that's just me. The honorable mention that I would add to this list is, and you'll hate me for this, the Star Trek Enterprise episode Judgment. Okay. Captain Archer is brought before a Klingon tribunal for crimes against the Empire. He meets his accuser, who we know as the ancestor of a piece of shit. So apparently shit runs downstream in this family. And he has to convince his attorney, his Klingon attorney, to let him speak his piece. Now, I'm not a big Enterprise fan. When it was on the air, I thought it was a hunk of shit. I didn't like the theme song. Half of the episodes were crap. But, you know, in hindsight, compared to STD, Enterprise feels like real Star Trek. And I hate to say that, because I don't consider it real Star Trek. I look at the stuff that Gene Roddenberry had his fingers on, and maybe DS9, since it was like fresh out of that era, and parts of Voyager, like the later seasons of Voyager, got pretty fucking good. But Enterprise was, in my opinion, like a producer's pet project. Now, the main thrust of this video is that this article was made to hype up STD. And for me, even encountering it all these years later, the only thing it did was remind me of what I loved about Star Trek and hate about the spin that they're taking on this. Because in STD, we get introduced to the Klingorks. And the producers of the show have openly admitted that they are an allegory for Trump and Trump supporters. So they're propping up these beastly things, this travesty of an honorable society, as political cannon fodder. That's wrong. Don't do that to Star Trek. And my only saving grace is that this is an alternate dimension. I only hope that at the end of this terrible, flaming gas bag of a series, Q appears and goes, and then Picard wakes up like sweaty in his bed, and Q's right next to him, like licking his earlobe or something, and going, "This is how it could be if you're not careful." My name is Immortal Coil. Give a like, hit subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what you want to see covered on future editions of Savage Spirituality. And share the video if you think that it's worthy of sharedness. And remember, headcanon is greater than any STD.